Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to our sewing channel, Sewing a Little. Today we bring you a tutorial that not only has two bonuses, but it has a free pattern. I know you guys have been asking for free patterns, and unfortunately we're not able to provide them as often as we'd like. But today you're going to have a free pattern for this tutorial. So what is the tutorial? You're going to learn how to make 3 scrunchies. I am sure that you already know that they are not difficult to make at all. They're very easy and very beginner friendly. We decided to name these Ruby. As you can see, there are 3 different designs, and the 3 designs are absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to start off with the white one. We chose to use an elastic for this tutorial, but elastics are not difficult to find at all. Online, you can find them very easily in any craft store. So this white one is basically like your basic white scrunchie, and we decided to iron a little bit the pleats so that it gives it an extra touch. But if you like, you can definitely skip this step. So now for the second scrunchie, we have the red one, and as you can see, it's absolutely gorgeous. We actually added like this ribbon, so it gives it that extra touch. And trust me when I say it's not difficult at all. If you're a beginner in sewing, then you can't skip this tutorial, because learning how to make your own scrunchies is a perfect detail, a perfect aesthetic to have in your wardrobe, because you can match your scrunchies with whichever fabric you are using. For example, you're wearing a blue floral dress that you made at home and you want a special scrunchie with that same fabric that matches with your outfit. You can definitely make that with our tutorial. Okay, now for the third and final scrunchie, we have this back one. And as you can see, this one is like the big puffy scrunchie from all of the 3. Well, we actually used obviously more fabric because we wanted to give it that extra touch. So it's much more puffy. They're just so versatile that you're going to love to make this tutorial. All right, let's not wait any longer and let's get sewing. To make the Ruby style hair scrunchies, you will first need the pattern. The direct link is below in the description box. In our case, we are going to be using some scraps of fabric, but you can use the fabric type and design that you prefer. We will also need pins, a little scissor to mark the notches. You can also use small weights, elastic, a drawstring. This tool is used to be able to insert the elastic and to turn the straps inside out. It is very useful. We will be leaving links down below in the description box, but if you do not own one of these, there's no problem, since you can use a safety pin and it will work such as fine. We will also need a fabric pen and a ruler to measure. Again, the links to all the tools and machinery are below in the description box. We will start with the first scrap of fabric. That would be for the scrunchie or hair ornament in the color red. If you want, you can pin or you can use the weights. In our case, we will place pins at the ends and in the middle. Now we begin to cut like so. As you can see, it is very easy. We will only be making these 3 simple cuts for this piece. This would be the decoration of our scrunchie. Now for the scrunchie itself, we will be cutting this piece that would be 2.5 inches by the length that the scrap left us with. The red scrunchie measures 3 by 20 inches. For the next hair scrunchie, we will be cutting this style in black. The measurement of this black scrunchie is 5 times 26 inches. Again, all these measurements will be indicated in the downloadable pattern. If you wish, you can adjust the measurements to your comfort. This would be our second scrunchie. Now for the third and final scrunchie, we would be cutting and building the white design. But remember, you can use whatever color or pattern of fabric that you prefer. This scrunchie would measure the same as the first one, which would be the red scrunchie. As you can see, to build these beautiful scrunchies, you don't need a lot of fabric. You can take advantage of any scraps of fabric that you have, and that would make this project an upcycling type project. Once we finish cutting, these are the pieces that we should have. For our first scrunchie, we already have the body of the scrunchie itself cut out and an 8-inch diameter elastic. For the second option, we would also have the scrunchie cut and an 8-inch elastic by the width that you have. For the third and last option, we would have the scrunchie cut with an elastic, in this case a little skinnier but also 8 inches long. And it will also include a decorative ribbon since it is another design. We will also need a strap puller or drawstring, but you can use a safety pin as well. We will also need this tool, which is useful for easy passing the straps, but we will still be giving you more options during the video. We are using a fabric marker. This one specifically erases with air on the purple part, and on the blue part it is erased with water. All the materials, utensils, or machinery used in this video will be with direct links down below in the description box. And now, let's get sewing! We'll start with the black scrunchie. The first thing we are going to do is close it. To do this, we're going to fold it over itself, and we are going to completely close the seam at a seam allowance of 2.5. Now we go to the iron and we're going to open the seam. We iron this way. Since we have it like this, we are going to fold it over itself. As you can see, we will have 4 pieces left. We would be taking the top one, we are going to discard the middle one, we take the bottom one, and we are going to join seam to seam. Now we're going to put a safety pin about 2 finger widths away from where the seam is, and we're going to start sewing from the seam. Once again, we are going to discard the 2 of the center, which would be 1 and 2, and we are going to join seam with seam, and we would start sewing a little before the seam. We are going to start sewing 1/2 inch before the seam. We backstitch and continue sewing. Once again, we're sewing at 1/2 inch. We would stop sewing where we placed the safety pin and backstitch again. Now we remove the pin, and as you can see, we are left with this little hole. This is from where we are going to turn the scrunchie inside out, like so. Now through this space, we are going to introduce the elastic that we had previously cut. For this, you can use a pin or even a drawstring if you have one on hand. As you can see, we are using this tool. We will leave the link to it down below in the description box. It is very easy, and you can also use a safety pin perfectly for this step. Now we are going to hold the end of the elastic with a safety pin, and that way it doesn't escape or move out of place. Now we are going to join this point to this point. We take out the elastic and we will be joining these 2 ends. We would be joining them in this way. We are sewing it on the machine, but you can do it by hand if you wish. Now this space that remains open can be closed by machine, but in our case, we will be sewing it by hand. As you can see, it is very easy to do. We just grab a little fabric from one side and a little from the other side, and that way we would have a hidden seam. We should have something looking like this. Now for the second scrunchie, we have the strap that we had cut. We have the elastic and a pin and a drawstring. But again, if you don't have a drawstring, you can help yourself out with a safety pin. We will start by folding the strap over itself and we will close it. As you can see, it is a very simple and easy step to do, especially if you are a beginner in sewing. When we get to the end, we make a fold in this way, and at the end we finish off back stitching. Now we are going to use this tool to turn the strap, but if you don't have this tool, you can use a safety pin just as fine. Just insert it into the strap like this. In our case, we are going to be using the tool that we showed you before. Now we will use this other tool to introduce the elastic. We clean and sew the elastic just like we did with the first scrunchie. We sew forwards and backwards. We clean the threads again, and we're going to introduce the elastic tie here. And now here we are going to sew to help us with the final part of the operation. So this part that we already had presented, we are going to raise it above this one. With patience, we are going to accommodate the fabric. Now it will only be necessary to finish it sewing by hand or by machine. As you can see, in this way we will give it a more beautiful and neat finish. The goal is for us to have a nice clean seam. At the end, we finish off making a knot and hide the thread. This would be the result. Now for this part, it is optional, but if you want, you can iron the scrunchie and accentuate the seams for a nicer finish. The idea is that when ironing, the folds will remain marked, but it is totally optional. Now for the last scrunchie, that would be the red style, we are going to need the ribbon that we had cut and the scrunchie strap. We will also need the elastic and a fabric pencil or chalk. These tools that are usually called drawstrings help us turn the straps inside out. But as we have already mentioned, if you do not have these tools, a safety pin will do. In our case, as the fabric is a bit wrinkled, we will start by ironing. But if this is not your case, you can definitely skip this step. We change the thread color of the machine. Now we fold and sew the shortest seams this way at 1/2 inch, always back stitching at the beginning and at the end. Now we will go to the iron to open seams. If this is your case, you can remove the excess like so. Now we are going to do the same process as with the first scrunchie. We are going to fold it over itself, and we are going to be giving it a security stitch. We're going to be leaving about 1 inch of space. As we told you at the beginning, we are going to sew a little beyond the seam so that the space where we are going to turn it right side out is not so close. We sew, and as you can see, all the steps are very simple. You can let your imagination fly and use different combinations of fabrics or change the measurements if you wish. When we get to the safety pin, we finish off back stitching and remove the pin. Now through the space that we have left open, we are going to turn it inside out. we are doing the same process that we did with the first scrunchie. Now through the space that remains open, we are going to introduce the elastic. In this case, we are using a slightly skinnier elastic. And in this case, we will be inserting safety pins on both sides of the fabric. This time, we will be teaching you how to do the same process, only this time it will be using safety pins so that you can see that it can be done perfectly this way also, if it is your case and you don't have the drawstring tool. We introduce the elastic in this way and we help ourselves with the auxiliary safety pin so that the elastic does not escape. We already have it out. Now we usually join the two ends of the elastic and sew it by hand or by machine, as in our case. We clean the threads and we will give a few stitches by hand. Now we will do the side of our scrunchie. To do this, you can fold over itself and make a seam, but in our case, we are going to be using a different machine. We are going to be using this machine called Baby Merrow, and what it does is a very small hem or a feston. As you can see, it is a very simple process. If you don't have this machine, don't worry. You can do it perfectly as we mentioned before, folding the fabric twice over itself. This was the result of our hem. Now what we are going to do is fold it over itself in this way. You can make the amount of folds that you prefer. The finer it is in the center, the easier it will be to sew. Now what we will do is sew it to the center of the scrunchie, which would be where the tie is. We sew it in this way so that we don't lose the center, and once you have it done, we are going to make a knot and tie it. And now, let's see the finished result! As you saw, the tutorial for these 3 scrunchies is very easy to make. You're going to love learning to make these 3 little cuties. And again, this tutorial is so versatile. It not only teaches you how to make scrunchies, but it gives you the opportunity to use that knowledge and combine your outfits with these 3 different scrunchies. You can choose whichever you like. You don't have to make all 3. But I suggest that you learn to make all 3 because that way you'll get a little bit more practice in sewing. Alright, that was all for today's video. We hope that you enjoyed making these 3 scrunchies. Again, if you have any questions at all, just let us know any questions that you may have. Again, remember that the pattern is free and you can download it down below in the description box. Alright, that was all and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!